Welcome everybody to our trustee forum for our June joint board meeting that will be held on June 21st through the 23rd. We have some of our Board of Trustee members and our Executive Director, Karen Burgess, here to speak tonight. So we have Karen Burgess, we have our Speaker of our House, Dr. Todd Christy, we have one of our newest board members, Dr. Chris Gorecki, and we also have Dr. Bill Patchak that will be speaking tonight. Just a few notes. If you look up at your panel, you will see that there is a Q&A box that you can bring up. If you have questions, we are asking that you use that box versus the chat box. And we will read out those questions as they come up, and we will ask each panelist that is speaking to answer those questions. So if you have any, please feel free to type them in at any time. So let's get started. Our first speaker is Karen Burgess, and it is on the ADA dues simplification. Karen?
Thank you, Margaret. Yes, I wanted to let you all know this will probably be a good discussion for the Board of Trustees to have. The American Dental Association, you might be aware, has been looking at their dues categories over the last few years. Last year, for example, they simplified their dues waiver process and the number of options available for dues waivers. We used to have 25, 50, 75, and 100% dues waivers. After an analysis, they decided that that was perhaps too complex. And as a result, the decision was made to go to just a 50% and a 100% waiver. Here in the Michigan Dental Association, we had no problems going along with that change. We had very few people who were getting waivers, and those that were getting waivers, it was easy to make the decision about whether to transition them to a 50% or a 100% waiver. So, you know, the whole idea behind dues simplification is that there is just so many dues membership categories and so many discounts that are allowed or offered for various different categories of membership. The number of members for the American Dental Association at the national level who were receiving one kind of discount or another was very large. And you've seen over time that the number of people who are receiving discounts, the percentage of members who are getting a discount has been growing and growing, with fewer and fewer people getting the rate one, which is full dues paying member. So that was part of the analysis or the point of view that I think the Council on Membership at the ADA brought to their discussion about streamlining or simplifying the dues categories, was this idea that we needed to both simplify and also take a look at where our trends were taking us. Our trends were taking us at the national level towards not enough dues revenue to actually fund the work of the association. And that's a scary place to be in. When you look also at the number of dentists who are graduating each year versus the ones who are retiring and leaving active practice, what you see is the demographics are not working in our favor. So I believe that the Council on Membership undertook a very robust review of all the different dues categories, who is getting a discount and for what reason, and really looking at what is fair to the member and also appropriate for the association. And they ended up looking most closely at 4 specific areas where there was a potential to have a very positive impact on the association. 4 scenarios, and not all of them are ones where there is a dues increase. So that was an interesting part to me. You know, here in Michigan, we were kind of on the vanguard. Several years ago, we did suggest to the American Dental Association that in the interest of long-term lifetime membership, that the ADA consider making dues for graduate students and residents free. You know, most people go into a postdoc program directly after dental school, but not always. And it is not a time in life where these folks are making a lot of money. And but it is also a time in life where their habits associated with membership are being established. So it's in our best interest as the Michigan Dental Association and the ADA at the national level is to demonstrate our value to them and easy for them to be a member. So the first scenario that the Council on Membership looked at was eliminating the national $30 fee for residents and graduate students. Here in Michigan, we were part of a pilot that evaluated whether that had a positive impact on membership numbers. And of course, what we found that indeed it did, making it easy and no barrier to membership was something that helped us dramatically increase the number of graduate student members. And in fact, I just saw a report that our number of graduate student members increased by 340% over last year. So that's a very impressive number. I'd like to see that with all our categories. So eliminating the $30 fee at the national level. They're also looking to see what that 4-year reduced dues program, what is the benefit of that? And analysis showed that while it's important to maintain the $0 year for new graduates, there was a lot of question about whether the 25, 50, 75, and 100% was going to be something that really made a difference to the new graduates. And so the recommendation from the council was to consider condensing that 4-year period to just 2-year periods. So you would have a 100% dues discount your first year out, then 50%, then you would pay full dues. So the new graduate would become a full dues paying member in the 3rd year, unless they had a graduate student year, in which case they might find it, if you stack them, that they would get an extra year. So then the next thing that they looked at was at the other end of the life cycle. And here in Michigan, you know, life members, those who are 65 and they've had 30 years of continuous membership, pay just 50% of dues and assessment. But at the ADA level, the level of dues is 75%. So they looked at what would be the impact if those folks just continued to pay full dues. And the expectation was, of course, that we would probably lose some members, but that there would be a pretty dramatic increase in terms of the dues revenue that we received. So that was the 3rd scenario that they looked at. And finally, very much like the Michigan Dental Association Board of Trustees that put into their strategic plan, our strategic plan, that we were going to have frequent small dues increases in order to facilitate sustainability of the Michigan Dental Association. The Council on Membership looked at implementing an annual dues increase of at least the past 5-year average of the Consumer Price Index. So looking at about a 1.3%, if you took the last 5 years, instead of this continual pressure to try and keep the dues the same and do less and less with the same amount of money, the idea is that we would get the members used to small dues increases at regular intervals. So they did some dues forecasting. They looked at what the impact on the numbers would be, and their expectation was that those 4 scenarios, if they were implemented all at the same time, would have a very beneficial effect in terms of financial sustainability. And while there would be an impact on the national membership, that the expectation is that it would not be a gigantic hit. So their Council on Membership is going to be bringing a report to the American Dental Association House of Delegates recommending that all 4 of those scenarios be implemented all at the same time. They are very much against the idea that we would cherry pick because that would have not the same positive effect. So the result of this, our own membership committee undertook an analysis of this to see what they thought about it, and because they wanted to fulfill their responsibility to the board to be provide advice. And at the end of the day, the committee is recommending that our board and our 9th district delegation, in the interest of wearing our ADA hat, do support this in the House of Delegates. They believe that the call was made and the recommendation was made after a very thorough analysis. You always hate to do anything that might have a negative effect on membership, but on the other hand, you have to face the reality of what this means. For us here in Michigan, we are well positioned no matter what the ADA House of Delegates decides at over 75% market share. We are in a good position to withstand any potential dues increases on the ADA side. For us, if this does go through, one of the things we need to discuss is, will we match it? And so that's an item for the discussion of the board. Do they agree with the Committee on Membership that this is a good thing to support? If it does pass, what are we going to do about it? And of course, as a delegation, we'll be discussing this in the 9th district delegation when we meet in August. So the committee did bring up, and they're advising the board to say, if this does go through, that the ADA and the MDA as a helper needs to make sure that we do everything we can to blunt whatever negative impact it might have on membership. For example, if dues go up for active life members, it'll be important to show that we have resources and benefits that docs near the ends of their practice life will really want to stay a member in order to take care of. So, that is one of the things that we need to discuss. Now, yes, go ahead, Margaret.
And there is one question that's come through.
I see that up here from Dr. Johnson. It says, will the MDA be reimbursing local components the difference in lost membership dues dollars for the graduate students, residents, and retired members? I'd like to divide that question if I could, because certainly there is a potential, I know, for some component dental societies to be significantly affected by the large number of graduate students that might become a member. So I think that that is something that we would need to discuss. The local components have, most of them do not charge dues to a graduate student, and we certainly would think that it would be a good idea for all 3 levels to have $0 dues. On the other hand, the idea that we would necessarily be in a position to make the component whole, that is something that we would have to discuss. So we don't have any, I think it's kind of getting the cart ahead of the horse, but I would say that we're aware that that is an issue, and I think that would be something that we would need to discuss if it does get approved. So sorry if I don't have a definitive answer there for you. And I see another question here from Dr. Lewis about dues income and what it is used for at annual session. With dues income forecasted to decrease, is this concerning, and what are our plans to address this? Yeah, we've talked to the board committee on finance. I would say that one of the issues that this proposal is designed to address is ensuring that we have adequate dues coming in to sustain the organization. The Michigan Dental Association is in a very good financial place at this point in time. We have reserves that are well above our target reserve level. And every year I know that the Board Committee on Finance and the board does look at the trends. So I think that while I cannot tell you that this is necessarily something that is a concern at this point in time, I can tell you that that is something that we're watching. So hopefully that will help you. I'd be happy to talk to anybody more specifically about particular issues related to the MDA finances. Right now, what's before the board is yes or no, what do we think about due simplification? So thank you, Dr. Margaret, for letting me to take a little bit longer. It's kind of a complicated subject, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Karen. Our next speaker is Dr. Todd Christy. He's the Speaker of our House, and he will be speaking on diversity and inclusion.
All right, good evening. I want to just say thank you to everybody for being involved here and coming on this evening to join us for this talk. I want to go through just a couple things that we've got coming up, because this at our meeting coming up, we're going to have, the board is going to be reviewing and discussing, if needed, the diversity inclusion plan update of 2019 that the board has been working on. The areas where significant progress is being made are as follows. Number one, the MDA has adopted a definition of diversity and a diversity statement. Two, the photos and images you see in the MDA publications, whether it's the print or online, have become much more diverse. Three, the MDA has conducted training in education and cultural competency. Four, the MDA achieved greater diversity in terms of women and racial ethnic diversity in our CE speakers that we've had over the past years. And five, established a process for enhancing leadership diversity and monitoring its impact. The MDA has been seeing an increase in member market share for women and minority dentists, and there's a burgeoning opportunity here to work collaboratively with local components to create a welcoming opportunity for both new and existing member dentists. The nice thing is right now is that the MDA has a strong and strengthening relationship with the Wolverine Dental Society, who has a pretty formal structure. However, the association has had limited progress on building relationships with leadership as well as other ethnic organizations or stakeholders, as they don't have as defined structure as does Wolverine. Now, that being said, that the MDA would welcome and seeks to work collaboratively toward mutual goals with all groups and stakeholder dentists. I'll say that I'm personally proud that our association and our Board of Trustees are keeping this topic as a priority for our membership. At our recent Board of Trustees leadership training held last month, one of our generative discussions was on this topic. You'll see one part, and I asked Michelle Nichols-Cruz, and we'll add on, there was a video, just a YouTube, it's about a 4-minute video, and we'll put that as a link at the bottom for when this gets sent out to you all as well. It's a nice 4-minute video to watch and learn from, and I learned more from that as well from what we got. But also, one of the nice things is that we are able to look at different articles in different publications. And one that Karen Burgess brought forward to us was from the American Society of Association Executives, or ASAE. And it was a background article that they had found of a recent journal. And so I just want to bring that to you just to read through for what they talked about, because they noted, I'm just going to quote here, they noted diversity is the composition of a group of people from any number of demographic backgrounds, identities, both innate and selected, and the collective strength of their experience, values, skills, and perspectives. At a more personal level, diversity is about appreciating and respecting the unique combination of characteristics of every individual. Now, intimately, they follow, connected to diversity is inclusion, which is created by adopting approaches to ensure that all individuals and groups have appropriate opportunities to participate and contribute to an organization's work. Our association and board, as well as our subsidiary boards and their committees, need to show our diversity and promote inclusion of all of our members and our new members and opportunities there. We have taken a clear course of action for ensuring both of these intents. These steps taken now are just that, steps. We all must continue to work together down this path by being intentional, realizing that there are limitations out there, and acknowledging when everything doesn't go right. But most important, remember that it's our association's future that we are creating. That's been one of the neat things, because one question that we had at our board meeting, for those of us who'd served in the past, that I started on our board 17 years ago, what conversations did we have back then? And there weren't any. And the nice thing is now we're talking about this and we're being proactive and being involved. And that's a neat thing for me to see, and I'm proud that our board is doing that. Let's see. And that's all I have to say about that. And hopefully for some of you out there, I wasn't speaking too fast. I apologize if I was. I just get excited and passionate. But coming up next, I will throw it back to our president, Dr. Gingrich.
Thank you very much, Todd. And I am here to talk about the virtual trustee forums that we will be discussing as well. In 2017, on recommendation from the House of Delegates and the Board Communication Work Group, we resolved that the MDA board will host a virtual forum for the House members prior to each board meeting, and be it further resolved that a report would be returned to the House of Delegates on recommendations on whether to follow up with future forums. We have been hosting forums for a year now, and on average, we have 12 to 21 participants. Actually, today's forum, I think we have a record number of participants with 27 on. And we sent out to the House of Delegates after our last House of Delegates meeting a survey that we had responses from. Our responses were about 37% responded, and from what we had, 75% said it was, but to keep the forums going, it was favorable or very favorable, and the information that they were gaining was useful. So the question for our board is, how do we get more involved? Is it still worth our time to continue having these forums? Is the House of Delegates finding it helpful as another way to communicate with their trustees? Along with that, we had asked how many of the Board of Trustees, how many of the House of Delegates actually attended one of the forums last year, and about 30% said they had attended. We asked questions, if you attended, how valuable was it? And like I stated before, 70% said very or somewhat helpful. And we also had how many went and viewed the archived trustee forums. And on average, we had somewhere between 5 and 36 views after it was reported that we were seeing. So we have in front of us whether to continue this trustee forum. And if you have any questions on that or any comments that you would like us to share with the board, we would love to hear it. Next up, we have Dr. Chris Gorecki to speak on dental plan sharing networks. Dr. Gorecki?
Thanks, Dr. Margaret. I appreciate it. I know that as one of the newer trustees, I'm excited to be here. It looks like I picked the short straw, so Vince Lizio kind of owes me one on this one, so we'll see how things go. I have 2 topics to discuss that the board will be discussing next week, and one came from the Committee of Government and Insurance Affairs, and it's about shared dental networks and the insurance companies and what they're doing with some of these what are called ghost networks. So the CGIA was made aware that what can happen is that certain dentists and in the dental benefit and insurance companies, they purchase other benefit plans. So you've got these sharing of networks, and it seems to me that it looks like the goal that unfortunately on some of these plans is that the fees could be a lot lower in terms of reimbursement. So the issue is that if by chance one of the dentists is participating in one of these shared lease networks, then all of a sudden the reimbursement rate looks like it will be a lot lower. And obviously the dentist might not know that he's participating in this in all of these because of all of the shell game that's kind of happening when the insurance companies are taking over some of these ghost networks and creating some of these ghost networks to make it look like they're probably having a bigger, broader area that they cover and more dentists that are participating. So basically, CGIA has asked that the Board of Trustees look at promoting legislation to promote a lot of transparency. so that a lot of the dentists will be made aware, and even patients as well, that these networks are being formed. The resolution is basically made to follow some of the ADA guidelines. In the ADA guidelines, there are 10 bullet points that basically go through these model affiliate carrier clauses and network rental laws. There's, like I said, 10 bullet points. And basically a lot of it is to promote the transparency so that a lot of the dentists will know that they are participating in these shared networks. I guess the problem that I'm having is how do people have time to, to look at this, and who's going to be looking at all of these to make sure that the insurance companies are following these rules. I don't know who can police all of these policies and make sure that that this is actually happening. So there's we're going to be having a resolution to hopefully promote through legislation in other states to obviously have a little bit more transparency, so that a lot of the dentists that are participating in some of these networks will know that it's a leased network and a shared network, and then go from there in terms of making their decision on whether they should continue to participate. The other thing that I was given in terms of discussing was some of the legislation that's out in Michigan in terms of trying to promote obviously getting more registered dental assistants into our offices. So there's some legislation that's being possibly is being discussed, and there are Senate bills that out in the state legislature in terms of trying to promote some grant and scholarship feedback for certain programs that are out there. Obviously, not just for dental assisting, but and they are called Michigan Reconnect and Michigan Opportunity. So the Michigan Reconnect would provide tuition-free training toward a credential or certificate or an associate degree to non-traditional students who are at least 25 years old and have graduated high school. Then the other legislation that they're looking at is called Michigan Opportunity, which would provide graduating high school seniors with 2 years of tuition-free post-secondary education at a community college or tuition assistant for 2 years at a public or private nonprofit 4-year institution. So going through some of these Senate bills, there's a lot of minutia in terms of how they are going to figure out who's going to be eligible and what kind of programs are eligible. And obviously that's all still being discussed. It doesn't look like there's any type of monetary amount that's being given out there, and I don't believe that that's been discussed yet. But obviously it does look favorable to the MDA that we should promote this type of legislation, because once again, it does where a lot of dental offices are having a hard time getting a registered dental assistant into their offices. So hopefully by having a type of grant assistance or scholarship abatement, that would hopefully increase this type of position and getting people into our practice and getting them excited about becoming a registered dental assistant. I think that's pretty much about it for my report, and I believe that the next person that's going to be on is Dr. Patchak. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Patchak, and I was asked to speak with you this evening in regards to some legislation that the Committee on Governmental and Insurance Affairs has asked the Board of Trustees to pass. And the particular legislation they wanted us to speak about is dental specialty recognition. That is, in the state of Michigan, the state of Michigan only recognizes 7 of the 10 specialties that the American Dental Association has deemed to be special. 3 of those specialties which the state of Michigan does not recognize are the oral and maxillofacial radiology, dental public health, and dental anesthesiology. 2 years ago, we passed a resolution that the Michigan Dental Association would advocate for 2 of these specialties. The third one, dental anesthesiology, was just passed by the commission of, it's technically the National Commission on the Recognition of Dental Specialties and Certifying Boards. I immediately turned around once I read that large title, and I wanted to do some research to find out who was this National Commission. And the National Commission is appointed by the American Dental Association's Board of Trustees, and it's made up of 9 general dentists and one specialty dentist from each of the 10 specialties that are recognized. They go through a series of rules which the group who wishes to be specialized must formulate, and once they've met all these, then the board or the commission will sit back and vote and decide whether or not to make that a particular specialty. They're asking, the CGIA is asking for us to just accept and advocate for any specialty which the commission deems worthy of being a specialty. The one specialty that's on here that is public health dentistry has been a specialty with the American Dental Association since 1950. The state of Michigan has not recognized it in the last 70 years. So I hope we'll be able to push the legislature to recognize these specialties at some time in the future. That's it, Margaret. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Patchak. And I will be discussing the last topic of the evening, which is our generative discussion. When we went to the ASA summer, it was talking about a highly effective board, and that a highly effective board does generative discussion at every board meeting, and they should spend at least 20 minutes or more looking at a 10,000-foot view and looking at what's coming out on the horizon in 3 to 5 years so that a board can be prepared. So at our joint board meeting, we are going to have a speaker called the Ideal Enthusiast. His name is Greg Roth, and he will be discussing a generative discussion to think outside the box. All of our board members, or all of our different boards. So that will include the foundation, the board of trustees, IFG, and everybody gets together. And so hopefully we'll have some good ideas that will come out of that. And then on Saturday, we will continue the generative discussion. And along with that, all of the board members were given several short articles about disruptors that we have that are occurring right now in the dental profession. And a couple of the examples that really struck me was that Henry Schein is now doing a value club. And you pay $100 and you get points. And with this, as you pay this, you will get faster service or be moved up on the list if you need work done in your office. You can get discounts. Although it wasn't mentioned in any of the articles, I was also just informed like Banco does the same thing. If you pay $100, you get blue chips. And as you earn these blue chips, you get discounts on products, and you get a certain number of chips depending on whether you're buying equipment or you're buying other things to use in your office. Another disruptor we have that some of you may be aware of is called Swanky Smiles. And this was brought to our attention, and it's a do-it-yourself kind of dentistry, except for you as the dentist would have the patient in, and you determine that they need to have clear aligners. You would take the impressions and pour up the models, and a van can actually pull up to your office, and you give them the models, and they will do the suck-down models, or the suck-down trays, and actually send them to the patient. If the patient is having difficulty with any of these retainers, they can then, they will actually go out to the house and they will complete the rest of the treatment for you. And as a thank you for the referral, the referring dentist will be paid like $150 to $200 back to that dentist. And when they charge about the average of between $1,000 and $3,000 for the treatment. Another example that we have an article for is the United Healthcare is partnering with the Direct Smiles Club, which many of you are aware of that. And for employees that choose this option to go with Smile Direct to improve their oral health, employees could pay less than $1,000 out of pocket because the Smile Direct Club charges between $1,850 and about $2,200. So they're encouraging them to do the treatment through Smile Direct versus maybe necessarily seeing an orthodontist. So these are all topics that we will be discussing at our board meeting. And I think that concludes my discussion on the generative. And we are looking if there is any feedback from members that they'd like to say anything. And I did have one that was brought up by Chris Chrysler. He said, I would definitely like to see the trustee forums continue. I find them very informative and worth my time to better serve the members of my component. Thank you, Chris, and we will make sure that the Board of Trustees hears your comment when we discuss this next week. Is there any other questions that we have for our panelists this evening? Seeing none, I would like to say thank you for all of the participants that we have had come on tonight. And I would also like to extend a thank you to all the panelists for speaking on their topics. As always, we are always available via email, phone, or by texting, and you can get our contact information. Thank you, Dr. Patel. And you can feel free to contact us at any time. Also, please be aware that our trustees are available for any component visits. And if you contact Jennifer Lenneman, you can arrange for a trustee to come to your area. Thank you and have a great evening. Oh, I see the question. Okay. Is there any other questions? Thank you very much and have a great rest of your evening.